Welcome to the London Commercial Offices podcast with me, your host, Steve Berridge, Managing Director at Fidgens Cost Management. This is a podcast where we share the stories, career paths, lessons and insights from some of the industry's most influential people. Anything contained within our podcast should not be considered professional advice, and if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe or follow buttons to ensure you don't miss any of the amazing guests we've got coming up. It also really helps us grow the show. Thanks. Today we're joined by Harriet De Freitas, a Director of Office Leasing and Development at Avison Young. Avison Young is a global real estate advisor with over 5,000 employees across 100 offices in 20 countries. They provide a range of services for investors and occupiers across multiple sectors. So without further ado, Harriet, welcome to the show.
Hi, Steve. Thank you very much for having me on this lovely January morning.
I know, actually the sun is shining actually today for me. So
that's in Bristol. Don't come to London.
Don't come to London. So you'll know from our previous episodes that we like to start right back at the beginning. So how far back are we going today? Were you always destined to end up in real estate?
I didn't know till probably quite far down, probably until I was in my 20s, about what I really wanted to kind of do and focus on. No, I wasn't. I didn't know what I was destined for, and definitely it wasn't real estate at the start. Yeah, it's been quite like a long way around trying to find out what would be best for me and what would kind of work career-wise.
Talk to me then. So let's go right back to school. Were you sporty? Were you academic? Where did you start?
My parents were actually based abroad in Africa during my upbringing. So it's quite a fairly unusual upbringing, but there is others obviously that have similar situations. So my kind of upbringing was very much kind of my auntie's house, my grandparents' house, and then various friends at school's parents would kind of almost adopt us, and every weekend we'd go to their houses. It was fairly unusual in that respect, but also very loving upbringing and we're obviously very fortunate. But in terms of focus on academia, that kind of wasn't on my agenda. I was very much always very obsessed with athletics and the outdoors. I was actually on preparation for this podcast kind of trying to think back to school days, and I have this memory of always wanting to get into trouble. I was constantly in detention. I think actually the teachers probably started getting quite annoyed because they were having to get up at 5:30 almost every day to take me for a run. So I think a lot of my upbringing, my first kind of from 10 years onwards, was just me thinking about running up and down the hills and the windmills down in the kind of on the Sussex Downs, where my kind of love of sport probably started. We used to be in all the athletics teams, and then I was doing sprint training for a running club in Sussex. Fortunately, I probably wasn't just quite fast enough to make any of the good teams eventually in the long run. Still kind of lovely way to spend my kind of evenings or after school. But then I think it probably wasn't until I moved to kind of GCSE years, moved to a school that was actually quite academic. So I was actually at Cranleigh in Surrey. Very good sports teams there and quite all-rounded. But for me, it was an environment where if you weren't doing well academically, you were pulled out quite heavily and publicly. I learned quite quickly I'd actually have to start
knuckle down and do some
knuckle
studying.
Down, get a passion. I think kind of where I started to become more interested in studying was probably when I had to pick my GCSEs. Because that's when you kind of it's the first time in your life where you're actually given a choice. And it's always interesting to see what way people go with that. And I very much went down the art geography route. Actually, I got very good GCSE results in the end. And then I ended up kind of going on to do my A-levels at a school down in Dorset, which was a lot of kind of farmers' children went there, and it was based out in Blandford. So I don't know if anyone that part of the world, but it's very beautiful. I spent a lot of time outdoors there.
Obviously, you were sporty. You decided that you need to knuckle down and focus on your GCSEs. Where did the sort of the geography selection come from? Which is probably the very start of your real estate career as such. Was that just out of the blue? Was there a reason why you picked geography at that age?
I kind of wonder it myself. I think it's probably linked back that I wanted to kind of be outdoors, and it was something that I could actually link to the day-to-day. And if, Oxbow Lakes, all the rest of it.
That's all I remember from my geography GCSEs, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, I did
Longshore Drift.
I did it for my degree, and that's probably still my lasting memory of it. The fact that you could actually you could physically see what you were talking about. I'm dyslexic, so I think that also really helps when you can actually kind of quantify something and work amongst it. And obviously, I absolutely love going to national parks and all that outdoors activities, and that was something you get to experience whilst you're studying geography. And that does link quite closely into the built environment, obviously. I think you're also at university in Bristol as well, so you'll remember the built environment block.
I do, very
down at
fondly.
French.
GCSEs went well.
Yeah.
And then continued through to A-levels. And then in terms of A-level selection, I'm guessing geography was one of them.
Geography, biology, art. So yeah, no, it was quite a lovely environment to be down in Dorset. And
Was that boarding still, as in staying down there?
Yeah, so my parents were obviously still abroad at that stage. My mum was back in the UK part-time. Yeah, she was based down in Sussex. We were down in Dorset. It did go from being kind of like seeing my parents once or twice a year to seeing my parents more regularly, which was quite nice. But it was a very small school. And again, I think that kind of smaller environment is something that it suits me more as a person. Being a small fish in a big pond can be quite daunting for a lot of people out there. But whereas being fortunate enough to be in a smaller school environment where you'd have a closer knit of friends around you is definitely beneficial for me. It was a very safe environment, and I've still got a lot of friends from down in Dorset, and I kind of regularly down there at least 4 or 5 times a year visiting friends, and my godchildren are down there and all the rest of it. It was a lovely move for me to be able to be down there. We did, again, it was a lot of outdoor activities. We had countryside management, which was offered as an A-level, which I didn't take up. 90% of the school were doing countryside management for their A-levels, and we had like ferret pens and pigs, and
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it was great. I wouldn't mind going back there now. All my meals being cooked. But in return, we did have to go to chapel about 5 times a week. So there has to be a payment somewhere. But after that, I was still quite lost in the sense of what I wanted to do long term. I had some kind of grand ideas about where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. I wanted to run a farm shop. I had looked at at 18 years old, you actually don't have the cash to run a farm shop. And I don't even think today I'd have the cash to run a farm shop. I decided university would probably be a good route forward and probably buy me some time to kind of look at what I wanted to do more long term. So after I got my kind of A-level results, it was in between going to Oxford Brookes, where my sister went, or going to study in Bristol at UE.
What was the reason for picking Bristol? As in, did it have a particularly well-known geography course, or?
No, it didn't. I probably went with Bristol in the end because my sister had been at Brook. So I actually thought that being in a different city would be kind of more exciting and experiencing something new and different and much bigger, because having been down, at schools down in Dorset, a bigger kind of town and city environment, I thought would be quite beneficial for me. And Bristol kind of offers the best of both worlds, doesn't it? It's a stunning
perfect size city.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember going there and comparing it to London. I can remember saying to someone in a car down the M4, saying, God, I think Bristol's as big as London. Very naive, I know. Yeah, it was a great place to be. I found actually that a lot of my friends there were studying real estate. So at the time I was kind of surrounded by people talking about real estate, going on their trips to Budapest to look at the commercial property out in Budapest. And then there I was kind of going to Normandy to count rocks. But I actually ended up doing a bit of a mixed course. I do geography with environmental management, so both kind of physical and environmental geography. It was a great course actually, and there are a couple of people on the course which ended up kind of actually moving back into jobs that were kind of based around the environment, whereas kind of I think one of the issues was when I left university, there was very few jobs that were kind of focused around ESG and environmental management.
Just in terms of the fact that we were in 2010. And,
2010. Yeah, I think that the stuff that was around was mainly, why don't you go and become a geography teacher? And at that stage, I was kind of, when I left uni, 21 years old, and I kind of wanted to experience London life and have a bit more fun.
So talk to me then. So university went well, 07 to 2010, got your degree, I'm assuming. Where did the direction then come from to head into real estate? Did you have friends or family or, someone that you knew that was in the sector already that you got a taste for it? Or was it really a completely cold, I'm going to try something different and off I go?
It's going to go backwards a bit. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew that I needed to earn money after university. So I
opened a farm shop.
I opened the farm shop, lost £5 million. No. I actually moved to London, but I interviewed quite heavily, worked for a headhunting firm. So I ended up eventually accepting a job offer to work for a company, part of the S3 group. So they're a recruitment umbrella company that focus on the banking and finance sector. So I ended up being a recruitment consultant for them for just over a year. I actually think it was a really good grounding for me. You go into an extremely tough environment where you are kind of thrown into the deep end. I was aged 21 and just going out and meeting, heads of development, IT development teams at HSBC, Barclays Capital, and all the kind of big funds as well. It's just quite interesting. You just get thrown into this world and you get a lot of responsibility put on you. But I think the best thing about it is it gives you a really good work ethic. So I was very fortunate. I got very good on the phones. It made me realise that you've just got to go out there and do stuff for yourself. And I think I probably learned more in that year than I did in the 3 years I was at university. And it gave me a really good understanding of business. Yeah, I think from that, I did realise there was obviously a lot of men within the IT and finance world. I think from that, I realised that I wanted qualified at something as a woman. You always have that kind of perception that, at some point you're going to go off, you're going to have your children, and then you're going to have to get back into the workforce because people, unfortunately, around my age group don't have the privilege of being able to be stay-at-home mums now. We all know what it's like financially. That's when I kind of thought, actually, I do want to do something where I'm qualified and I can kind of come and go from it as a career. I did look at two different things. I did look at becoming a geography teacher, and then secondly was to go and do my master's in real estate. On the advice of my mother that I'd apparently be a terrible teacher, which I disagree with, I decided to go and do a master's at London South Bank University. So during that time, also worked at a small surveying practice, who I don't think are in existence anymore. I think they got bought by LSH quite a while ago. So I worked for a company called Edward Simmons, based in Borough Market, and I actually worked within the alternative investments team for them. So I did 2 to 3 days a week with them.
Was that kind of linked with the course that you did, as in sort of you do your MSc in real estate and they're kind of partnered with people in the industry and kind of push you towards those opportunities? Because it was still, at that point in time, you'd only ever done geography and recruitment. So then go, great, I want to go be a commercial agent. Or where did that come from?
A shout out to my best friend. My best friend is Rebecca Harper, so she is now actually head of investment at Rapley's.
Involved with Propski?
Yeah, she was. She does Propski, prop sale.
That's right.
She's good at everything as Vex. She was actually working at Edward Simmons on their graduate scheme, working in their hotels team. I was out at Borough Market having some drinks with her and got introduced to some of the members of the team at Edward Simmons, and I said I'd really like some work experience. Yeah, I kind of started doing 1-2 days a week for them, and then it kind of evolved, and then I said I wanted to obviously study and I wanted to work alongside my studying because I actually just thought it'd be quite helpful to be doing something applicable to what I'm learning day to day. And it was very beneficial. I mean, doing a full-time master's as well as having a job is obviously tough. I think it made me do a lot better during the masters in terms of studying and knowing what I was actually talking about. Again, very fortunate because that was based in Elephant and Castle, and obviously I was working in Borough Markets. It was quite like an easy connect for me. And yeah, it was a great year, actually. There's quite a few people that were on the course now that are still doing kind of very well, including an agency. So Kat Tilley, who's at RX, and Honor Rankin at Cushman's, they were in my year. It's nice to kind of still have those people around and kind of catch up with them fairly regularly. After that finished, I obviously needed a full-time job. And I ended up umming and ahhing about working abroad. I just had that kind of desire to work abroad.
I wonder whether that comes from your parents. You got that influence, haven't you?
Potentially. Did accept a job abroad, but then I decided last minute that actually I wanted to be in London. Ended up working for a very niche investment practice called Nightingale Partners. We were based on Berkeley Square, and I did a couple of years working for them, which was kind of like my first introduction into kind of the London market, investment market. And I did also for them do some leasing work. So if they had kind of clients that were looking for offices in London, then I would kind of dip in and help them do the search. And that's kind of, I guess, what made me really realise that actually that fast-paced leasing environment was probably the right one for me. At that particular time, the investment market was absolutely flying. You were getting yields of 1.5% on retail units in Knightsbridge and bits like that. So it was quite...
This was sort of 2015 sort of time?
That was 2014. Yeah,
2014.
It was a very good environment if you're an investment agent. In terms of deals were definitely happening. Also, because the market was so competitive, as a graduate, there was less work for me to necessarily do. I remember doing my first leasing deal, Joel Raldell, who's still at Cushman's today, taking 1 Avery Row for a client. I think it was about 1,000 square feet, but I was also very excited about it. And then from that, I decided that then if I wanted to move into the leasing route, I applied for a job at Tuckerman. So Tuckerman's a leasing agency focused on the Victoria Westminster market. So I kind of went down there.
What was it particularly about leasing that got you?
I mean, it's still hard to kind of put my finger on it. Just like the fast-paced nature of it, it's quite exciting. You're looking at a number of options, but ultimately the end goal of
A quick 15-second pause in today's content to tell you about the amazing work we do at Fidgins. We're a small but powerful team of cost consultants based on Oxford Street and focused on the London commercial sector. We help project managers and end users successfully deliver a vision for their projects. For our smaller schemes, 10,000 square foot and upwards, we offer a neat one-stop solution covering PM, CM and EA roles, which is particularly well suited for fast-paced, budget-constrained projects. We also work with a range of brilliant project managers on larger office fit-outs where we solely provide cost management services. These currently include 2 exciting large occupier schemes, both with build costs in excess of 20 million. Whether you're an end user, an asset manager or a project manager, our only rule is that you're nice to work with because life's too short to not enjoy your day job. So if you want to find out how we do things differently, send me a message on LinkedIn and we can have a chat. Now, back to the show.
At that point was, finding a business their home. It was actually quite exciting, and you got quite a good insight into businesses and what businesses were trying to achieve, and you were getting to meet, very people that are running varied businesses. And it just kind of being involved in that process of finding a business their home really excited me. And the turnaround, you've always got a lot of plates spinning, and that's something that I really enjoy. The more I've got on, the kind of more I kind of achieve, and I strive to do more. It's like, what they always say is give something to someone that's busy and they'll get it done sooner. And I still actually very much believe that today. So that hasn't changed. The busier I am, the more I will do. Just finding those hours in the day is amazing what you can do. But so I think, the passion of just working in that environment, I kind of almost immediately knew that was for me as soon as I started working in that leasing environment. I joined Tuckerman in 2015, the end of 2015. Still as a graduate, I hadn't qualified at that stage, but I'd got a very good grounding at Nightingale Partners. So I had all that investment experience, and I just kind of needed to bolt on 6 to 12 months of leasing experience in order for me to do my APC. I joined Tuckerman. For those that obviously don't know, it's a very small agency, so headed up by Guy Bowring, thrown in the deep end again, get given some keys and out you go. It was I look back very fondly on those years. I was there quite a long time and I learned a lot, and I'm still very good friends with them now. It was very much that kind of family environment, a bit like how I was kind of referring back to my school years, where you've got a small environment, which is where I kind of tend to thrive, and just being able to be yourself. And you can obviously get more one-on-one attention. So if there's any questions or issues I have, you kind of get quite a quick and thorough. Sat next to someone that has as much experience as Guy was always extremely helpful. And even today, if I have issues or questions about stuff, I'll give him a call. So it's actually quite nice having that relationship with her.
Joined as a graduate and you were there for sort of 6-7 years.
Yeah, that's
over that time rose up through the ranks.
Yeah, exactly. So rose up kind of gradually through the rank, become a director there. Kind of something else that was quite exciting about working at Tuckerman was when I started, Union Street Partners was born. So Tuckerman and Fairbrother together decided to kind of build a new office, which was Union Street Partners. And from that, I was kind of doing 2-3 days a week for Union Street and 2 to 3 days a week for Tuckerman, depending on kind of what market was busier. But also that kind of obviously kept me interested in the job because you're kind of learning new markets and working on very different stock. The Tuckerman, the kind of Victoria market is obviously very established. You're working with kind of blue chip clients from anything from Landsec to Grosvenor to Derwent, whereas on the stock south of the river, it was a bit of a different angle. There was a lot more developments coming through, investments. You had kind of more private landlords. And it just gave me that opportunity to work on just, like I said, very different stock, which is always, I think, very exciting. You want to be on anything from, I'd love to be on something very shiny, and I also love to be on a warehouse that wants to be redeveloped. I think that was also a lovely part of working there, having the ability to do that and also work with kind of between two offices. So Union Street Partners was kind of going back to my roots because it was that South Bank presence again. I think our first office, PSP, we had 4 desks. I think it was based on America Street, and TB Bennett's office. We had a little base there. And then eventually, a couple of years in, we got our office above Coffee and Borough Market. So it was back to literally depths away from where my first job was, which was lovely. But, like all good things, I was there for a long time, and the opportunity to kind of arose to move on, which is never a easy decision, especially when you kind of are so close to your colleagues and consider them family. So it was never going to be an easy decision to leave somewhere like that. That's where I got to with that before I had a number of approaches from different firms over the years, especially in the last year that I was at Tuckerman. Jimmy Walker from Avison Young caught me at a good time. The kind of what I was offered and the opportunity was quite different to what others had offered me as before. It was a hard one to turn down.
When you were coming to the end of your tenure at Tuckerman or USP, was there something that was missing that you were looking for, or at that point in time, you were content? It just so happened that there was a knock on the door, and what I'm really interested in is obviously we've talked about small fish or big fish in a small pond, smaller teams. Well, obviously, Avison Young, not a small team, or not a small business. So I'm interested as to sort of the approach from AY and what attracted you to that opportunity.
I was extremely content with where I was. There was a lot of tears. I think in the last 3 or 4 months I was working there, I was like, God, I don't know why I'm leaving. But actually, I think it was kind of ended up actually being a more personal reason as to why I left. I was going through quite like turbulent time in my personal life. That actually a change in my work life might be beneficial for me. And maybe I'd have also thought that I thrived in that small environment, and maybe like a test to see how I would kind of survive, if that makes sense, in a larger environment with more people around me, and also to see kind of what other opportunities working for a larger kind of corporation bring me. And I guess the nice thing about Avison Young was Jimmy was kind of talking to me and having these conversations with me. It was very much like growth of one particular team. So it was almost the London market team was kind of going to be they were they'd hired in like I think 6 agents from Colliers on the investment and the agency side in the city. So that was a very big growth piece there. There was opportunity to be part of something new and fresh. So whilst Avison Young was a larger business, the actual team itself was kind of, which we still are today. We are a very kind of close-knit team. So I guess that's the kind of, it still feels like quite a small environment.
Talk to me about working at AY.
We're going from buying the fruit bowl at Tuckerman, and which we all shared. It wasn't just my job, but weekly, who's getting the fruit, who's doing this, to I just like walked in. I can remember there being like fridge with Cokes and coffee machine and all this stuff, and you kind of are like initially like, wow, free drinks. Quite a shock to the system initially, not knowing anyone's names in the office and being introduced to all the different kind of business lines. I've only ever worked in an agency. So suddenly you've got people from planning and business rates and CPO and land and development. And you're thinking, God, I didn't realize all these roles existed within commercial real estate. Clearly they do, but it's also a really exciting opportunity to then kind of do cross-selling and business development and working alongside the planning team and giving their clients advice on future developments. There has been a huge amount of opportunity given to me at Avison Young, and it's been a great couple of years so far, and I think kind of moving forward, there's lots of exciting stuff in the pipeline. Yeah, it's been very enjoyable, and there's a lot of amazing people that work at the company with a huge amount of experience. So it's been very beneficial, and I've learned a lot. And I think, as a leasing agent, I do actually think that on every single transaction I work on, I do learn something new. People can look down a bit at kind of leasing agents and think, God, you're just doing the same thing day in, day out, but you're really not. Every deal is so different from your client, the building. Every floor plate is different. Every floor has its challenges. And the world of leasing has really evolved a lot. When I started 10, 15 years ago, it very much was, here's a Cat A office. Or our advice to a landlord was always, put it back to Cat A. And I look back now and I look at how much advice we have to give today, and it's tremendous, and how the market's moved on. You do just learn something new on every single deal. So it's not one dimensional at all. And that is the great thing about this job. You are always progressing. You are always learning.
I mean, you joined in 2022, I think. Roughly.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So it's in terms of the market, you haven't had a clear run at it. It's there's been challenging times over the last 3 years. Survive to 25 was the mantra for last year. How have you found January 25?
January 25 I've only just got back from Patagonia, so a bit of an unfair question, Steve.
We could talk about Patagonia as well.
Well, don't get me started on that. I'll be a travel agent before you know it. The end of did a panel talk on the wrap up of 2024 and what we foresee in 2025. I think it still stands kind of what I was saying then, which was very much there are green shoots. At Avison Young, I sit amongst the London markets team, which is investment, and our flex team, and obviously the traditional leasing teams. And I can see day to day, I'm speaking to the investment team. They're asking for lots of advice on lots of different buildings, and I can see it's alive, and I can see how hard everyone's working. Okay, the leasing market in terms of viewings numbers has been down so far this year. I don't foresee that. I do foresee that it's going to be a pretty good year ahead. I think there is a massive lack of stock within the city market. The West End has slowed down a little bit over the last 12 months. There is some really interesting transactions happening. We've just all got to remain positive. We make our market, and I think if you've got to believe it in it. So hopefully things are kind of upwards from here on
An
in.
upward trajectory over 2025. What are you as a business sort of focused on for this year, but also personally? What's important to you this year looking ahead?
Yeah, I mean, personally, something that we haven't really covered off yet, personally, but still work-wise, is that I'm actually chair of the Western Agents Society. It's something you're probably not familiar with, given you're obviously on the QS side. The agency community has a database, proprietary database, which we use to pass information amongst agencies. It's purely for agents, so landlords don't have access to it, but it's basically where and all requirements and properties that are out on the market are listed. And so I've been it's a very close-knit community, and not only are we focused on building the technology behind that, but we're also looking at, we kind of do a lot of fundraising as well, something that was incredible last year. So the Agent Society has been running for a number of years. Well, it's probably like 20 years old, the system, but about 5 years ago, we made a contract with a chap called Mike Avery, who now owns a business called Cato. So Cato are building out the system for us, which has now gone from being a London system to actually national and actually international. They've got their first kind of sign-ons for international clients, which is really exciting for them. Last year, we brought back, which we hadn't managed to do because of COVID, the Western Agent City white collar boxing. Luckily, there are still some wonderful agents in the market that had worked on it previously, who were able to kind of work with myself and Jason Collier, who's at JLL, who's chair of the City Agent Society. So we put on an event last year where we had 10 different boxing matches. We had 20 agents doing white collar boxing, and we kind of held the event at the London O2 Indigo Arena. It was the first time since COVID, the whole agency community could really come back together and have a night that was just purely about enjoying ourselves. But we put out an advert and to agents to see who wants to participate in the boxing. Lots of brave souls put their hands forward, and we put them through like a 3 to 4 month training period prior to the fights. But it was just a lovely event to honor to be involved in, and I'm really pleased. We sold out the event really quickly, and we just raised over £115,000 for charity. It's actually the it's actually the biggest white collar boxing event in the UK.
Is it going to be an annual or biannual event?
So historically it's always been biannual, but it'd been kind of like I think a 4-year gap between the last one because of COVID. So that's something else I want to kind of make sure, as I've been on the committee for a long time. It was actually Guy Bowering at Tuckerman that put me forward to be on the committee initially. And it's always quite an honour to be able to give back. I know that's something we've spoken about previously, Steve. It's like being actually able to give back and help other people and do things that aren't just about the corporate world within our job. And that is something I do get from being able to be on the Western Agent Society, is that I can raise money. And we raise money, we put out adverts to the members of the society if they're doing any fundraising, whether they're running a marathon, but no matter what they're doing, or if they have a partner that's ill or anything like that, they're able to put forward charities, and we are in the position that we can donate money towards those charities. So that is something that would really lovely. Now, I've just transferred £115,000 into charities accounts over the last weeks. It has been a lovely thing to be able to do.
Yeah, so something really good does come from it.
Yeah, so it's a range of charities. I think, we've had this year, we did cancer charities, mental health charities. And I think also I think it's the first time we've give big donation to mental health. And I think it's really important to kind of recognise that there is a lot of mental health issues among colleagues, not just obviously in this job. I think COVID is something that really highlighted the need to speak more, especially for men who find it harder to obviously speak to people about their issues and their problems. Yeah, it's been lovely to be able to get money. Going back to it on I guess you asked me on a personal level for achievement.
I mean, I know there's a marathon within the year.
Yeah, there is. Kind of a bit insane. So I did my first marathon last year, and now I'm set. I think I've got 4 marathons this year.
Glutton for punishment.
Yeah, I need to drop one or two of them. I've got London, which I'm really excited for. So I'm going to be raising money for that. And then I've also got, I'll tell you what, I do have a swim across the Caribbean. It's my second big swim. So I'm doing a 5K swim from St. Kitts to Nevis in March. That's something else to look forward to. Then I've kind of got Berlin, Chicago Marathon, and I'm thinking about doing Medoc Marathon, which is the marathon where you drink a glass of red wine every couple of kilometres. If you wanted to join me on that one, the entry is open in March.
Crazy. I've really enjoyed today, Harriet. Thank you very much.
I really appreciate you having me on the show, and obviously I really hope that going forward the market continues to look brighter for all of our sake. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, then obviously I'd love to chat to them.
What we'll do is we'll pop your LinkedIn profile in the show notes, and actually we can chat afterwards if there's sort of your agency links that you want to drop in, or some of the charity events that you're doing. If people are interested, they can click on and have a look. Thanks ever so much for coming on. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. We'll get you back on again at the end of the year so we can talk about how positive 25 has ended up.
It's going to be fantastic.
Thanks, Harriet.
All right, thanks, Steve.
This podcast is sponsored by Fidgins, a London-based cost consultancy. Please visit fidgins.co.uk to find out more about our market-leading service and some of the amazing clients we get to work with. We're super open to guest recommendations for this podcast, so if there's anyone in the industry you'd like to get on the show, please visit the website or send me a message on LinkedIn and I'll try to make it happen. Thanks and bye for now.